welcome to Podcast Nerd Life.
Yes.
Because that's what we're rolling with.
Yes. From here on out, we are forever known as your nerd masters.
Yes. I'm Jimmy, the last son of moviegoers Janda. Then with me is Jared, the Bat of Gotham,
Yes.
or the Bat of wherever he wants to be from.
It would be the Bat of California.
The Bat of advocating movies. Williams. So this is the podcast where we talk about all the nerdy things that are happening. If we don't get interrupted by people walking across this really big window.
we got booted out of the Wayne Enterprises.
Yeah, we're no
boardroom.
longer in the executive boardroom of Wayne Enterprises. We're in let's
just say Batman came home.
The creative area that nobody ever uses in Wayne Enterprises anymore because it's way out of the way.
So we're going to do... Now, we know some of you guys haven't seen this movie. It's a fairly new movie. Came out last Friday. Actually, this past Friday. So we're going to do this kind of cool. We're going to do a quick little introduction, first 5 minutes of this thing. Will be very spoiler-free, very surfacey, basic reactions, stuff like that. And then we will give you ample warning when we are entering into spoilers. And
very ample.
Like, we're going to take a minute.
Warning.
Literally, you can time it, start your timer.
We'll just say, warning. Things are about to happen. If you haven't seen it for whatever reason, you won't want to listen to this.
Yes, and we've kind of predetermined what we feel to be spoilers and what we feel to be common knowledge, so I apologize in advance if what we feel is common knowledge.
We've determined everything that you will get, and you will like it.
Alright, so...
Alright, so what we had written down was one-word description of how your initial feelings upon leaving the movie.
Excited.
Excited.
I was excited and happy.
Tell me why. Those two words.
So, I thought the movie, it did a really good job of, and this is my opinion, just remember that, did a really good job of setting up the confrontation and kind of resolving the confrontation. And I thought that it really did a good job as well of honing in on the actual differences between the two heroes.
Okay.
I also felt that the way that the movie moved, like the speed of it, some people might say it's really like way too long, whatever. I thought it was just right. If not, it could have been longer. There was never a moment where I was just like, I'm bored, can we get into it already? I was very engaged, very intrigued by every aspect of it. I really enjoyed it. It was exactly the movie I wanted it to be.
Okay, I will give you that. I will give you that I never felt like it dragged. I was never bored. My word is confused, and I told you that already. And
I'm interested in hearing this.
Well, okay, so... The reasons that I'm confused by the movie have nothing to do with it being a comic book movie. If I went to any other movie and I had the issues that I saw in Batman Superman, I would still be equally as upset that I saw that movie.
Yes.
Not a bad movie. Really enjoyed the way that they did characters. Really enjoyed the way it looked visually, obviously, because Zack Snyder is really good at visuals.
Oh, he's amazing at those, yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I could not tell you what the plot of the movie was. Immediately walking out,
I can help you with that in the spoiler part.
Okay, because I felt like I watched a string of clips.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like it was very tied together. I felt like there were some loose things as far as, like, the build-up to the fight was good, but I feel like when it came down to it, like, I could have seen it going a better way, and I'll describe that later.
Yeah.
But... I really enjoyed that. I really thought the fight was cool. I feel like it could have been longer, but probably for different reasons.
Yeah.
I feel like they could have explained a little bit more of things, and with all of the stuff that they jammed into there, I feel like some more could have been explained, and it wouldn't have hurt them. I feel like it would have
definitely. No, I'll be interested in seeing that 3-hour long
R-rated
version.
Cut. Yeah, because I hope, because everything that we've seen leads me to believe that everything in the R-rated cut is just more cameos and more violence.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that it's not just that. I'm hoping it's more of we had to cut this because of runtime
Exactly.
It
like,
would have explained things that you probably wanted to hear.
yeah, like maybe it's just like re-adding all the deleted scenes kind of thing, which
Yeah.
obviously is what an extended cut is. But yeah, so let's see.
How did you feel about characterization? Because we were starting to like.
Yeah, we can get into that without spoiling anything. So
Yeah.
character-wise,
the major people.
we'll go with the big three.
Yeah.
The people, the ones. Well, I guess the big four. The people you know are in the film.
There you go.
We don't consider the spoilers. Batman, obviously, Superman, obviously, Wonder Woman, and Lex Luthor. We'll hit those big four, and then we'll get into some spoilers. So let's start with the man, the god, the legend,
Martha Kent.
Batman. I call Batman a god. If you saw his body, you would too.
He actually becomes a god at one point.
He does. Okay, so Batman. For those of you who were very concerned about Batfleck,
That puts your fears to rest.
Yeah, he was perfect, spot on. I mean, he wasn't Kevin Conroy.
No, but he was as close as you can be to Kevin Conroy without being Kevin Conroy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was kind of a good combination. I think the best way to describe it would be think violent style of Arkham Knight Batman mixed with kind of the
campiness of Adam West. No, it
No,
wasn't
no,
at all like
no.
that. It's not.
kind of with the broodiness of Christian Bale, I would say. That might be a good way of kind of putting that together.
Okay.
I think that would be a good way of describing it. So it wasn't full on Kevin, it wasn't full on Christopher Nolan.
It was his own thing, but
yeah, he really took it on himself.
I feel like he took the good aspects of Batman. He really, and that's kudos to Ben Affleck for doing your research because
Exactly.
he knew what he was doing with that character.
Exactly.
And minor sidetrack, he's writing the Batman movie with Jeff Johns.
Oh, that's gonna be an amazing movie.
And if I am correct, he's going to direct it too. So
it should be a really
that's
good
going
movie.
to be a Batman movie.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see that.
Exactly.
All of this is just praise, just showering Ben Affleck with praise.
Ed money.
Yeah.
Superman. If you were into
And now we're minus our. Here comes our third.
Here comes our third.
Late to the party. We're already freaking doing this.
So we're talking. We'll get into. Phil just joined us here,
Say hi, Phil.
Hello, everyone.
and we just got done with our one-word review of the movie. So before we continue on with
We'll backtrack and let Phil catch up.
characters,
So, one word, your initial viewing of the movie, how would you describe it? You can take your time, it's okay.
Yeah.
we can cut.
Jared's was amazing
And
and happy, or exciting and happy.
Yeah, exciting
Mine
and
was
happy.
confusing. So, I feel like I'm going to be outnumbered here. I'm going into a battle
And remember,
of my own.
we gotta keep this section a little spoiler free. So
I think, 'cause I thought about it all weekend. I didn't get to see it again like I wanted to.
Mhm.
But I would say ambitious.
Okay.
I
I
can
can buy
see
that. Yeah.
I mean, because they tried so much to fit in everything that would be cool. And they extended the movie
Yeah.
to fit all this stuff in. And I think it almost worked.
Yeah.
almost right. Okay.
I'm okay with that. I would say that's an accurate description.
Yeah, that's probably the most realistic.
Yeah. Not heavily one-sided or another. I feel like that is a pretty unbiased description.
Yeah.
Well, because I knew I wasn't going to get what I wanted
Yeah.
going in. I knew
You can't
just
please
from
everybody.
from the Frank Miller story that they took.
Just so you know, Phil loves Superman.
Then Jared loves Batman.
And Jimmy loves Batman. So
So you're getting slightly biased.
we were happy with the Batman, but Phil was expecting to be disappointed with the movie at large because he knew that in the story they based it off of, Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns. If you haven't read it, you should read it. But
You don't need to read it before seeing the movie.
no, not at all. But in that story, Superman gets his ass handed to him a lot,
Yeah.
and his character's not really
He's not a very
Superman-y
strong
character.
Yeah, he's not a very strong character.
And he's a tool of the government. It's a whole thing. Anyway, so
So
afterwards we had started talking about characters. We're going to hit the big four.
So it'd be Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Lex Luthor.
And we had just started describing Batman.
So what's your opinion of Batman?
We
Batman. Really liked him. We kind of described him as a Conroy meets Christian Bale kind of feel.
Yeah. Not being a huge Batman fan, because Batman is dude in a suit with a lot of tools.
Mm-hmm.
And goes in and kicks butt.
And that's why I like Batman, actually.
Yeah.
So, he's really cool. I mean, anybody with a utility belt, generally pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I've never disliked Batman. I just don't like that he gets more praise than Superman. I can understand why. I get it. I've lived with it for many, many years.
I feel like at this point it's become like a decade of they just wanted to make Batman movies, and because he had more movies made about him at the time, that people were that's really what drove the popularity.
Yeah.
At least among mainstream audiences.
And some really cool movies. You know, the
Batman and Robin.
Right.
The best.
And some decent movies. But the
Dark Knight.
This portrayal, I think, was done really well, because you can tell that Affleck really likes Batman.
Yeah.
So he wanted to do him really well.
Yeah.
And I think he did a great job. The fight scenes are amazing.
Right.
Right, ripped off the comic books.
Yeah,
almost.
it was just cool. It was like watching panels.
Right.
It was pretty sweet.
And but we get we got a better Batman as far as that he's older and cares less about what other people are thinking
Very
about him.
brutal Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and his moral codes are kind of
Questionable,
worn.
yeah.
They've eroded over time.
Yes.
So that was fun to see. That was exciting to see. Not to see we're used to a Batman that holds back.
Yeah.
So he'll get to a certain point with his enemy and then stop.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all waiting for him to finish, and he doesn't. And this one had no qualms about putting their head through the floorboard.
He finishes all over the place. Okay, so if that's the case,
so let's,
Batman, we're gonna let you go first on this one because
we're gonna
talk
about Superman.
You're the Superman superfan.
Right.
So how did you feel about Henry and his portrayal of Superman in this one? Because I mean, we've seen a movie of him already.
Yeah. Right.
So how did you feel that they represented him in the movie?
I think it was very similar to Man of Steel.
Mm-hmm.
Just because at the end of Man of Steel, I thought we saw a Superman who had understood where he was.
Yeah, it seemed that way, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he had a handle on what his job was supposed to be, or how he is with others, like with, the population.
Interacting with humans.
Right.
Yeah.
And taking care of them in a way.
Yeah.
Where he's like with the Guardian because no one else can. And that's the Superman that I'm used to. So watching Cavill go through this and he's still not sure was kind of disappointing. Just that beginning of the movie, he's more Clark Kent than he is Superman.
Yeah.
And it's like he wants to be Clark more than Superman.
What it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it's probably the way he grew up. Because I bought the 4-pack Superman at Walmart.
Nice.
And I watched the first one, and just as a comparison, and he, as soon as he comes to the planet, he's ready.
Oh yeah.
When he's in the pod, he's getting instruction from his dad.
Yeah.
And once he lands, he kind of knows. Even though he's just a kid, he kind of gets it.
Yeah.
And that was.
Yeah, I mean, even then, I think he was a lot. Like the age that he was sent here as is a little bit different, and so while he was getting that instruction, it was a little like I feel like it was imparted upon him at an age where he could still remember it.
Yeah.
And then even then, like you said, the way that this is 78 Superman, by the way, the way that he's told all of these things, like Jor-El already knows so much about the human race, and he's like, this is what it's going to be like for you going there.
Yeah,
so
like
you're
already
going to need to
predetermined
be all of these things, yeah. You can't just go around smacking people through walls. And,
right. But that was clear instruction.
Right.
Yeah.
These can be great people, but they need your guidance. And Man of Steel, he doesn't get that instruction.
No.
So,
If anything, he gets the instruction through his own experience that humans are shitty people.
right.
Well,
They
and I
have
think
not much greatness.
I think to kind of go off of that a little bit though is one thing that I've noticed watching Man of Steel, watching Batman vs Superman. There is and I would say even reading through the Earth 1 Superman series, which I think this Superman is modeled off of.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of people in Clark's life telling him, hold back, hold back, hold back. Like, you aren't from here, you don't belong here, hold
Right.
back, try to blend
The
in.
world won't accept you.
Yeah, the world
Right.
won't accept you.
You're
and
weird.
Yeah, and which I think if you
Smell
were
funny.
if you were to think about it in today's world, let's assume that Superman actually existed in our world today. I think that is a lot of what he would be hearing.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of people who do hear things like that, they hold back. They don't allow themselves to express themselves in full form.
Yeah.
And so I think for Superman, the reason he doesn't want to be Superman is because he's almost afraid of himself as Superman.
And what he can do.
And what
all
he can
that,
do.
and how people are going to react.
Exactly. So I think when he finally does let himself become Superman, there's a lot of blowing off steam.
Okay. Okay.
And so I think that's kind of where it is. Like, and personally, I like this Superman because the thing that I hated about the '78 Supermans and all Supermans prior to that is there's no conflict within him. He has
He's just
no
infallible
internal
and
conflict. He's just
everything.
like, I can't die,
Right.
yay,
Has the answer to everything.
Exactly. And whereas this Superman is there's a lot more inner turmoil within him, and I like that because it really humanizes him.
Right.
And he actually becomes someone I can relate to, rather than someone that I'm just like, yeah, I'll never amount to be him, so, okay, let's go on to Batman now, because I can be him.
Well, see.
If I had money.
Yeah, that would be cool. But I think my problem is I just wanted to get him to get over it faster.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he got over it in Man of Steel and did not.
See, that's what my concern is that I felt like at the end of Man of Steel, he was already cool with himself.
Right.
And then we come into this movie, and it's like we jumped halfway back through Man of Steel.
Well,
like he regrets.
Yeah.
He went back to a person who was questioning every move.
And maybe that's because this is backlash. Maybe it's because at the end of Man of Steel, none of this had happened. People weren't burning effigies of him and protesting him and really things like that. Maybe that's what causes that. But I feel like even then, I liked Superman. I felt like they didn't do enough with him in the movie.
Definitely.
But at the same time, I feel like if you're going to have that turmoil, that inner conflict, it should be about something else other than maybe I shouldn't be Superman, maybe I should be Superman.
I can see that.
Yeah, because I feel like there are other things that he could be concerned about. Maybe it should be about maybe I'm doing this wrong. Maybe I'm,
Well, and I think and we can talk about this more in the spoiler section of this whole thing, but I think that they did kind of touch on that a little bit.
They did, but it seemed like more of it was concerned with, maybe I should just stop. Maybe I should go back into hiding because this idea was somebody else's entirely and it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
My dad wanted me to be this, but he didn't want me to be this.
Well, and again, I go back to the Earth 1 Superman, and there he had that same struggle
right
in the second book of that one, and he eventually came out on top. But it still took time.
Yeah.
True.
It took time for him to get
Yeah,
there, and it took time for him to accept
That's where the hope is. Because from the end of the movie, to me, there was hope that we're going to, get that Superman. And it's just frustrating as a Superman fan that it's going to take this long. We've been waiting already, and have had to sit through many, many movies of Batman, and to finally get to this place, and then now it's all about Batman again.
Yeah.
And so that's a little frustrating.
It is. Well, I mean, that's why when we were sitting there, and I've told you this a million times, and now I'm going to tell them this, I was pretty sure that you were going to hate it. Because watching it was just like, I went into it wanting to see more Superman stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge Batman fan. I wasn't really concerned with how they were going to do Batman. I was pretty sure it was going to be good. All the reviews that I had heard up until then were pretty much all about Batman and how it was great.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, wonderful. Let's move on. And so I was wanting to see Superman do Superman things.
You kind of did.
He kind of did, but for the
On a
most part,
very low
like,
scale.
yeah, that's what it was for me too. It was like a very like, you know, he does, but then he doesn't, and we'll get into that more in spoilers.
It's more like
anyway.
the hipster Superman. It doesn't want to go out too far and do too much outlandish. He kind of wants to do it low key.
I also have a good argument for the letting loose and blowing off steam aspect and how it could have been done better. We'll save it for the spoiler.
I get you. Yeah.
Um,
Let's move on to Wonder Woman.
How did
We
everybody
can
feel
let
about
Jimmy
Wonder
start
Woman?
with this one since I started with Batman.
I get Wonder Woman. I thought she was great. I thought she was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
They're really mysterious about everything, which was very awesome. And you kind of find things out the way, I mean, sort of. I mean, if you going into the movie, if you know anything about Wonder Woman, even whatever, you know who's playing her already, so you know who she is. But you get to watch the revelation, the other characters figuring that out, which is pretty cool. And
Right.
then when she finally does jump in and start doing stuff, it's awesome. It is
Yeah.
so cool.
I mean, there was like people clapped.
Yeah.
When she came in and like as full on Wonder Woman, which was awesome. Yeah, I was very impressed with her. I thought overall, I wouldn't say she was the standout of the film. I think Ben was more the standout, but she was definitely a close second. I mean, she played that role perfectly from the mysterious, this mysterious woman that keeps kind of coming in and out to finally coming in full on Wonder Woman just to and kick
that
butt.
slight arrogance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a little bit.
Which was kind of cool. I mean, because
It added something.
why wouldn't she have that ego? I mean, she can kick ass.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like that's gonna.
She's like the
it's
perfect middle between Batman and Superman, though, too. Where she's got like some of the brutality of Batman, but she's also got some of the powers of Superman, which is
and that reserve that she puts in between because she's dealing with these lowly humans.
exactly.
Yeah, I thought she did great. She was a little bit more sparkly than I thought she was going to be. Like, usually the low-key heroes are low-key, and she was, like, in there wearing gold and...
Yeah,
like
it's pretty flashy.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like, and not just, like, little bits of gold, lots of bits of gold. And
Yeah,
they were,
she
like,
had that very like high society.
Yeah.
like, very high.
Yeah.
Where you don't see these people in public.
Exactly.
And to see her walking around like that, it was like, well, wait,
Yeah.
do I belong here?
Yeah, exactly. But it also was like, maybe her way. I mean, that could have been her way of hiding her identity as well. I mean,
Yeah.
instead of pulling the Clark Kent and playing the lesser citizen, she's kind of taking a cue off Batman and like, play the high flight citizen.
Now, there is a thing that's weird about that being that I don't think they explain why she is that way in the movie, but I read about it outside of the movie.
I think that's going to come in her own solo movie. Based on some of the things that she said, we'll get into it in the spoiler part. Based on some of the things she said, I think we will get into that in the solo movie.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're going to explain everything about what you saw in this
They
movie.
are. They're supposed to explain a lot of that. I just feel like even then, like I read somewhere she's a museum curator. And
That would make sense.
The only indication I feel like you have of that is her looking at antiques and stuff in the movie at one point. So
That and it allows travel.
Mm-hmm.
So she
yeah,
would
it's
be able to,
inconspicuous. Yeah.
Yeah.
if she disappears, well, she just went to go see something.
Right.
Exactly.
But okay, so
And
Wonder Woman,
finally-
great. So we'll go on to Lex Luthor.
Lex Luthor. So this one I can expect getting mixed reviews because even the little group that I went to go see it with had some very mixed reviews. None of them were negative, but they were just mixed. Personally, I liked this portrayal of Lex Luthor because I'm trying to think of a good way to say this without spoiling too much for you guys, but I think the trailers kind of show you his personality
If you
a little
had to
bit.
describe Lex Luthor in one word, what would it be?
Fun. No, seriously.
Yeah.
He was not. I'll tell you this. I don't think this will spoil anything for you. He's not your typical Lex Luthor.
No.
Do not go in expecting animated series Lex Luthor
No.
with real deep voice. Got no time for any messing around. He is very much so.
He's
Cocky.
He's a Lex Luthor for the millennial generation.
Yeah, he's also you can tell he's smart. He's very and he's very like showy about the smarts, but not in like the typical scientist like I'm gonna outsmart you way. It's very like don't underestimate me, and I'll do it quietly, kind of thing.
Yeah, the eccentric.
Mm-hmm.
That's really a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I felt that he was twitchy.
Twitching.
Yeah, definitely.
I can see that.
Not taking all of his meds. That's,
No.
It's just the ones that keeps him, from
Just
being
balanced
taken away.
enough.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I felt like they gave him good lines, though. They gave him great dialogue. I love the delivery on some of it. But then there were other parts where and we'll get into that in spoilers again, that I felt like things could have been done in a different way that I feel like his character would have really come out and been a standout if they had done it in that way.
Definitely.
But I did enjoy a lot of the stuff that he did. I feel like he was I kept wanting him to, I wanted to be like, whoa, just fucking take a breath. Calm down. Because he was so, vibrantly, all over the place and animated. So just man, okay.
So I guess expect animated Lex Luthor, but not based on
not
the
in
animated.
Not a cartoon, yeah. Animated in the sense that he's just bouncing off all the walls. But
So for those of you guys who haven't seen the movie, now I would suggest turning off your... just taking off your headphones.
Or skip ahead.
Or skip ahead to the very end.
Put a time in there. I'll figure out how to do that. But we're going to talk about spoilers for a bit, because this is where really the meat of the movie is going to be discussed.
Exactly. So we're going to give you a second or two to do this, because we all know you won't believe us the first time, but seriously, believe us.
Spoilers.
We are going to spoil this movie
Spoilers
for you.
are coming. They're going to be spoiled.
The red coats are coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spoilers are coming.
You know that line? I really liked that line in the trailer, and I really wish... Huh?
You didn't like it.
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
no,
where
I
he's
did.
like, the red capes are
It
coming.
felt like it was out of place. I felt like
It
that
did.
kind of line needed to be at the end of a long speech.
Yeah, not
Either
at the
that-
beginning of-
No, either that or it needed to be at the beginning of the fight between Batman and Superman, while he's talking to Lois Lane. That's almost where I expected it.
Yeah.
Or right before he initiates, again I said we're into the spoilers, right before he initiates that battle between them, he just kind of walks, he just kind of was looking at the time, and it's the time is right, and then he's just the red capes are coming, because it would have worked perfectly with Superman in the red cape, and
Right.
that would have
Well,
been
I
cool.
expected it to be when he was talking to the senator and trying to convince her how bad or
that's
evil
what I thought it
Superman
was,
is.
too.
Mm-hmm.
That how he could easily take over and create a group that was gonna, help take over, because he could do it by himself, but if he had a group, it'd be easier.
Yeah, the group of Supermen.
To herd, people. So that's where I thought that line meant. The red capes are coming, meaning you need to worry about this guy.
Not him mocking the senator.
Right.
So, if that is our jumping off point in getting into this discussion, then I feel like when he starts that off, in the context of him saying that, I felt like that point in the conversation with the senator was going to start turning, and you would see that everything that he's done up until that point has been just a face that he puts on for the public.
Mm-hmm.
And so his conversation with the senator would have been a lot darker. And the only time I feel like we got that is when he's tapping on the desk and she has to stop him because he's looks visually like he's
about to take her head off.
Yeah. So that's why I was like, oh, we're gonna get to see it, and she stops it, and then he goes back to being a goofball. And so that's why I was like, I kind of wanted to see it turn at that point. I feel like that would have maybe that's too predictable though.
Possibly. I mean, so you mentioned your word confused, and being someone who
I kind of
felt
figured we could take this beat by beat. Too,
yeah,
as far as
being someone who felt that the movie as a whole actually told a very good and cohesive story. And mind you, I actually had to walk out for 5 minutes because I had to pee. So, but even with that, I still felt like I understood what was happening, what was going on, and how all of this played together.
No, I understood what was happening. I just feel like, I had to piece it together myself.
Okay.
I don't feel like it was a story that was there just for the enjoyment. I didn't feel like watching it, you could be like... I feel like it left a lot up to you as a comic book knowledge, sort of movie.
Kind of. But, so, after watching the movie, I read IGN's review because I was like, why did they give it such a bad review after giving Man of Steel a good review? And the headline on it was, if you go in expecting the Avengers, don't go in expecting the Avengers, go in expecting another Watchmen kind of thing. And like the whole time I'm reading this, I'm like, duh, of course, like this is DC and that's Marvel. Like you're not getting Avengers with this.
Right.
And I don't think this movie was ever meant to be a response to the Avengers.
No.
I don't even think the Justice League is meant to be a response to the Avengers. For me, one big point that IGN made was that the movie lacked fun. And that was why they knocked it, is because it wasn't a fun movie.
It was dark.
It was very dark, and they mentioned it was a psychological superhero movie, more so than it was an action-packed fun superhero movie.
I can see why, but I mean, I thought it was fun.
Yeah, I did too.
I thought the action was cool.
I did too.
There were moments when you look at Superman and that was really cool.
There were really cool points in it where I thought that was not my qualm at all.
No.
That's why I'm kind of surprised they said that.
Yeah, and that was kind of the biggest thing that he harped on. But, that's something I really kind of liked about it, was that there were almost, I would say there were 3 main plots going on within the film and 1, maybe 2 subplots going on in the film. The 2 subplots, they weren't something that you care a whole lot about, that you're kind of feeling gypped that you didn't understand them fully. And that would be the Wonder Woman and all of the cameos.
Right.
Those are that was kind of like a subplot where it was like, I think it was in there to kind of show you what direction they were going.
Oh, definitely.
But it wasn't like, those weren't like, oh, we want to make these, this is going to be something you really care about. You were just kind of like, oh, that's cool, I got to see that. But the 3 main plots is, you've got Batman, who he's a prideful, narrow-minded person. Batman's always been that way. He's always looked at the world as either black and white, and it's mostly black. So, his whole thing is, he watched as Superman and Zod just completely destroyed his building, killing.
That sequence of the movie was awesome.
Oh, it was beautiful.
That was awesome.
Just
it was beautiful.
really cool.
And they showed that, and I think that even though you have more of a jaded Batman in this movie, who isn't too shy about killing, he still understands the gravity of death, and how he's still human in that sense of understanding that death is permanent. It's, if this person died, they're never coming back. And I think they really honed that in at the beginning when he's hugging that girl who's like, my mom was in that building that just got completely destroyed by Superman, which really I think helped turn Batman into this, I'm completely anti-Superman because I've seen what he can do, and I gotta stop him. And then you had the Superman storyline, which was very, like we were talking earlier, more like, I don't want to do this, but I feel like I have to do this, and at times I enjoy it because it can be a good outlet to blow off steam, and it's probably a good adrenaline rush for him, but it's also like, I think it's more like, if I could change the world by the words I write rather than the actions that I do, I would rather do it that way.
Being a good example as one of you and not putting myself above you.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And then you had the Lex Luthor story, which this one did take me a second or two to really click in my head, but Lex definitely is the main driving orchestrator in this film.
Oh, absolutely.
When he gives Scoot McNairy the wheelchair with the bomb in it, so and then says that he wants to go to the Supreme Court session and all that kind of stuff, has that dialogue with the senator, and then he's conveniently missing Scoot McNairy's there, and I thought it was genius how the camera goes to him first, then you see the explosion. So it's like you knew it was this guy, and you knew that he had his poor feelings against Superman, but you never thought he'd take it that far.
Right.
And so you're kind of left to wonder, wait, was that really like, was that his doing? But then you look at the peach tea, grandma's peach tea on the set next to the senator, and how Lex is conveniently missing, and you kind of start realizing, oh wait, okay, so he purposely gave him the wheelchair because he was playing off of his distaste of Superman, and then put him in that position. And
You see,
stuff like that.
I liked the grandma's peach tea thing, but I saw all of it coming when he gave him the wheelchair.
See, I actually didn't. I did not actually see that coming at first.
As soon as he spun around and they started talking about it, I was like, yep, terrorist. And then like here we are, and
Yeah.
he just like orchestrates the whole thing, and then as you're watching it out in the courtroom, it's like, yeah, of course. She spins it around and she's like, you can't make me drink the tea, but you can like pee in the jar or whatever. It's the funny like allusion to it. And then there it is, and so it was like, that's kind of scary. And then you look over and he's gone, so I was like, yeah, she's dead.
Yeah.
I was like, somehow they're all gonna die.
See, and I thought it was something like she'd already taken a drink out of it, and
I thought
it
it was
was
poison
like poison or something. Yeah.
But then as soon as that happened and he wasn't there, I was like, there's a reason he's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, then it all blows up. And so, my thing about that, if we're gonna take this a couple of scenes at a time. I feel like this movie can be broken down into a couple of major things.
It's 3 acts. I mean,
Yeah.
it really is a 3-act movie.
So, the part in the courtroom, when it gets blown up, I could have sworn this was gonna be, and I think it kind of, they did it, but it didn't feel like they did it enough. And I feel like towards the end of the movie, it kind of really got lost in there. But I felt like that was gonna be blamed on Superman.
Mm-hmm. Which it was.
Yeah.
It was, but at the same time, everybody already hated him. It felt like everybody was already so vehemently against Superman.
Right, but I
This
think
was the tipping
solidified
point.
it.
Yeah, this was that tipping point.
So
that
if
pushed them
that's
all
the
off edge.
case, what's your argument for them loving him at the end of the movie?
I say guilt. I think that's
Mhm.
the way I feel.
In seeing and how he sacrificed himself.
Right.
Nobody saw that.
But
What they learn of it.
yeah, you would learn of that. Because, I mean, think about it. Think about the fact that, like, okay, when the military went in and they got Saddam Hussein and stuff like that, like, after it happens, it may not be the day after it happened, but a couple weeks, couple months after it happened, you start learning about the heroes.
And how it played out.
And how it
Sure.
played out. When 9/11 happened, the same exact thing. I think that would be more comparable to this. You know, you're watching the devastation going, oh my gosh, and then as the weeks progress you hear about the heroism that was going on and how this person rose to the occasion and that person rose to the occasion, this person gave up their life so that this person could live. And you know, I think that those kinds of stories go. The fact that Lois was there, she's a reporter, of course she's going to write that story.
Then maybe I just felt
You
like
know.
the time jump and they didn't really explain any of that. Like, you saw the paper,
I
you
don't-
saw the article that
Yeah.
said Superman's dead. And so it's like, all right, I guess, yeah, there you go. There's
Yeah,
your
you
Lois
have
article.
to assume it was at least like a week to 2 weeks after. I mean,
It just felt
They
like
didn't
it.
give us that timeline.
They didn't though, but I felt like the closer we got to the end of the movie, it was everywhere in terms of chronology. Because even during the funeral, it was like, okay, here we are, we're at the funeral, he gets buried. Then here's Bruce and Diana, they're at the funeral, with or without Lois, because she was there at one point.
mhm.
Then we're, well, like in jail, and Lex is getting his head shaved, and then we're back to the funeral, and Lois is putting dirt on the grave.
Well, I think that's meant to show this is all happening at the same time. So like, while the world is mourning the death of Superman, Lex is getting his head shaved.
Which is fine,
Yeah,
but I felt like the way that they did it was just like...
I can see that. See, the first time I watched to kind of play with that, the first time I saw The Dark Knight Returns, it was my least favorite of all of the Nolans because of that very fact. When Christian Bale is inside of the pit, and it's like 1 minute he's confined to a bed, next minute he's doing pull-ups and push-ups, and now he's climbing out.
That's all over the... Like,
Yeah, I was like, what the heck? Like, I missed something somewhere. But then as I watched it a second time and the third time, I was like, oh, okay, I see how this progressed now.
I was going to say, I'll give you this. As far as that movie, yeah, I felt the same way when I saw that. Because they did do the time jumps and they didn't explain it. But I felt like those time jumps were in succession.
Mm-hmm.
Watching the end of Batman Superman, I felt like I was going forward and backward, and like there was no explanation for
Infinite crisis.
it. Yeah.
You were having an infinite crisis. my
So,
man.
okay, anyway. The fight.
Oh, yes. Which one? There's two.
The first.
Okay.
The Batman Superman fight.
The fight that the movie is named after.
The one that had all the build up to it and then ended and they went on to something else.
So one of the guys who was supposed to join us here, he told me before I watched it that he thought the reason that Batman and Superman were fighting were stupid, and and the reason that they stopped fighting was stupid. I personally, the reason they were fighting made complete sense to me.
Yeah.
The reason they stopped fighting, I could see why someone would think it's stupid, because literally it's like
paper thin.
Let me finish my explanation on that, though, because I could see why you would say that. It's like all of a sudden Superman's like, they're gonna kill Martha, and he's like, oh,
my mom's already dead.
Okay, he slams the spear in the ground and runs away. But it's like you have to look at it, and I know you probably shouldn't do this in a movie, but still, you have to look at it in the eyes of Batman. What's the driving force of Batman being Batman? The death of his parents.
Sure.
Now, the entire time this movie goes on, how does Batman view Superman?
He's an alien.
Exactly. He doesn't view him as
He's
human.
humanized, yeah.
Well, that's what he tells him the whole time. You're not a man.
Exactly.
You don't have courage.
Exactly.
Courage belongs to men.
And so there's all of that build up to where all of a sudden, coincidentally enough, their mothers share the same name, and the whole reason Clark went to Batman was to save his mother, was like, I think it was an appeal to Batman's human side. And when Batman saw that, when Batman realized that, holy cow, wait, Superman is human. He has a lot of the same cares and emotions that I have. I think, because I think Batman legitimately wanted to kill Superman, but at the same time, I don't think he wanted to kill Superman. He was still trying to look for a reason not to. That when that's something as paper thin, as you will, as a name, came out and had such a powerful meaning to Batman, and it really painted Superman more human, I think speaks a lot of Batman's character, but I think was actually a really cool way to stop the fighting.
Okay, I'll give you that. I enjoyed the
fight itself was amazing. I was like, this could go on for hours.
I kind of wish it had gone on a little bit longer. I thought it was a little short.
Yeah.
But that speaks to I'm back and forth about a lot of this stuff, and it's because I liked the fight. I thought it was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that it was a little short, but I feel like it was short because as a character, Batman had it planned out.
Yes.
And so seeing everything that he did, it was short because he wanted it that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, wonderful. The reason behind the fight, I thought started out very good. Because you had Superman, his mom just got kidnapped, Lois almost got thrown off a building, so he's probably pretty emotional. But the whole thing about his mom, and like when he leaves to do it, I was excited. I was like, this is great. I love what he just said. And his words were, I have to go and convince him to help me, or I have to kill him. And so I was like,
that was awesome.
You were being very blatant about this conflict, and I love it. And so he goes to do it, and immediately he sits down, and he tries to convince, but he stops after like one sentence. He's like, Bruce, listen to me.
And that was cool too. The fact that he didn't call him Batman, he automatically called him Bruce. Because it was a callback to the first time they meet each other. Yeah. And Clark hears Alfred in Bruce's ear. It was almost like, who's the detective now?
Okay, see.
That was cool. I liked that.
I liked it, but I didn't like it for that reason. I liked it because I always liked that they call each other Bruce and Clark.
Yeah.
But.
Which is why I also liked the fact that.
But at the same time. And I'm going to tangent for a second on that because it confused me because he hadn't done anything. Like, they were at the party, and I know that up until this point, we were all under the assumption that at that party and the conversation that they have, they know who each other are. Mm-hmm. Watching the movie, on the other hand, I got the assumption that both of them, those were jabs they would have made at each other regardless.
Yeah.
And so watching it and then getting to the point where he calls him Bruce, I felt like I didn't understand where he got the knowledge from. Like, he heard Bruce talking to Alfred, but at the same time, neither of them said anything about him being Batman. Neither of them said anything about him being, like, there to do Batman-y things or, like, sneaking around, like, stealing shit. Like, it wasn't about, like, that. And so I didn't feel like at that point, I feel like there could have been a better reason for him to know.
Yeah. I give you that.
But
more obvious.
a little bit, yeah.
Because my thing is he's a reporter, so at some point he's had to piece together certain bits.
But see,
and especially when he pushed him on Batman, when he asked about the vigilante, Bruce got a little.
He dodged the issue.
Yeah, not only that, but got a little defensive.
He did.
So kind of like it solidifies, like, okay, I already know you're Batman.
It just seems like a lot of supposition. It seems like you're placing a lot on, like, as a moviegoer, watching this, like, that's their job. Their job's to explain this. You guys are tying together these things using just your own knowledge, and that's where I feel it falls apart. But when you get there, and he's, like I said, Bruce, listen to me, you don't understand. And I loved that line too, where Batman's, I understand, and then he gets like shoved away. I was like, that's great, because it's total Batman.
Yes. Because Batman's thinking he's talking about one thing, Superman's like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, but here's my qualm about the way that it played out. He did that, it didn't work. He could have stood there and continued doing that, despite all the things that were hitting him.
I think at one point he just realized there's no getting through to him.
That's what it seemed like, but I felt like it happened too quickly.
Yeah, well, and that's where we go into the extended film. Maybe it lasts longer, maybe it doesn't. I mean, it's...
Maybe.
That would be the one place to shorten it if you're looking to shorten a movie.
Yeah.
Is Superman's patience.
I guess so, man.
And you also have to think about the fact, too, Superman's on a timer.
Yeah, that was the reason that I gave it when I was in the movie. And he and I talked about it. I was like, yeah, okay, his patience is probably running pretty thin because, again, Lois just got tossed off a building. They have his mom. He's got a limited time. And really have time to explain this.
He really wanted to kill Lex.
He just saw some pretty disturbing pictures of his mom.
I kind of wish that in that moment then he would have been like, I don't have time for this, and like would have said it, and then the fight would have come. Like at the moment whenever he walks through the fire and he doesn't say anything and he grabs Batman and flies up to the rooftop, I think like on the way there, if he had said that, I would have been like, all right, it's on.
But and again, to go, I mean, you had mentioned the fact that it's the movie's job to explain this, but I think a lot of that was implied just by the look in his face, everything. The fact that he just picked him up and just took him into a building was just like, you know what? Forget it. There's no convincing you. There's no time for this. Like, let's just fight.
I guess. It just didn't strike me as that when I watched it.
It felt like any slowing down of the fight would have been
detrimental.
Yeah, because most people, we've been waiting for this movie for 3 years.
That's true, but again, I'm not looking to slow it down. I'm just looking for them to.
And I mean that's something as simple between a look and just him flying up saying, I don't have time for this, and then giving him that look and going.
That's what I mean, though.
It's
you're
like
not
adding a
slowing
second
anything
to
down, and you're not even, like I said, the walking up, if they had him say that walking there, then you're not losing time. You're just, there you go, it's done, and I felt like it would have added a little bit more to his character.
Yeah.
Then you would have been like, okay, yeah, the patience thing and whatever. And like, I don't need my hand held through all these things. I just feel like there are, like I said, there are crucial like filmmaking things that did not happen with this, to where they just kind of glossed over it, and I was like, well, what?
Yeah.
But okay.
Well, I think the reason why we may not have gotten some of that, or in that pace, is because of he's still lacking confidence, and doesn't have the like. He's not the Superman, you need to get out of my way guy. He's Clark Kent trying to
be Superman
and trying to get Bruce to help him out, and it's not working out, and
but
he doesn't quite know how to handle it.
But isn't it, at this point, hasn't he come back from his existential crisis in the mountains?
Not really, not fully.
This was kind of the last stage of him coming back.
Okay, because he got back and she was like, I thought you were gone.
I think it was kind of a forced comeback. Like, I don't think he was even ready to come back, but he heard the scream of Lois, and that is what brought him back, even though he wasn't ready to come back.
And before we go too far, that scene where he shows up right underneath her as she's falling, I thought that was kind of cool.
That was cool.
He like totally matched her speed.
That he matched speed. Yeah, it was like a little pillow. Yeah.
Because the first movie, again, I watched the first one, and when he saves Lois in that one, he kind of swoops underneath her and catches her. And there's that whole argument of Big Bang Theory is like, well, his arms are made of steel, and if he catches her at a certain speed, he's just going to cut her in half. I mean, there's this whole physics thing.
Right.
And the way in this movie where he just shows up underneath her like, hey.
Just enough to be like, all right. And then,
to match your speed, and I mean that's a total Superman thing.
It is. It absolutely
super
is.
fast.
It was
Yeah.
cool.
But,
So we're running out of time, so we still have a couple things to talk about. Let's talk about the actual conclusion of the
The
movie.
real villain of the movie.
We won't talk too much about just the fight itself because I thought it was very much like Man of Steel, very out of the comic books style. I did enjoy the fact that Doomsday by the end did look more like the Doomsday we came to know and love in the comics. Less of a Lord of the Rings troll and more of an actual like abomination kind of thing.
I'm glad he actually did evolve. I didn't like how he did it.
No, I mean...
I felt like it was a lot of CGI lightning for no reason.
Yeah.
well, I have a theory on that. On that. The billowing of energy that comes out of him. I think that's the bell being rung. You know, that's the call.
That's the
Because
call.
he knew he was gonna. He knew what it was gonna do. That energy that was coming off him is like a beacon.
Okay.
So I think that's where what Lex is, what he's talking about.
That would be interesting. That's
See,
a good idea.
I like that.
I didn't even really think about that.
I like that theory. I have a different one, and this is what I gathered from like my initial watching. And I'm gonna go see it again tomorrow.
Oh, darn! I would have gone with you.
But
I would have been like, let's go together.
yeah, the thing that I thought it was because they siphoned all of this power off from the city to give him life in like a Frankenstein-y sort of experiment. And I feel like that is what they did because like in Doomsday's original characterization, he evolves based on what you throw at him, I liked how they did that for the movie, but I felt like that was all it was. It was like he evolves because they're throwing all of this stuff at him, but because they siphoned all this power off to give him life and we saw blackouts in the city to do it and all this shit was arcing everywhere, like that's why like he evolves and this is what happens. And so it just like this weird thing as he evolves. I feel like had it been more subtle and he evolved regardless,
Just
but
over
like,
time, like
yeah, I mean, as they were throwing stuff at him without the lightning stuff, but you saw him growing like the more bones and things, I would have been like, dude, that's fucking horrifying.
right.
Yeah, and so.
But I think one cool thing about that to kind of play contrast which is why I liked the Lex Luthor in this film, is he was the perfect contrast to the Superman they've created. It's very Joker Batman like, and I liked that. Was the fact that when the nuke goes off. And they just try to nuke Superman and Doomsday out of it. Doomsday gets energized from it, and that's where that's where he takes on his final form. Superman, on the other hand, and I liked how they did this. Yeah. He's drained like he is in The Dark Knight Returns Part 2, where it's just like all like old and weird.
It was cool,
and that was
like a dead body floating in space, like a dead cosmonaut just kind of just floating there. And
I thought that was really cool. How
I thought the image of
energy
cool.
has a different effect on these two.
Well, I read a thing, and Zack Snyder was talking about how that's directly from Frank Miller's book, and that it's to show that Superman can be hurt to a point where he looks like he's dead, but once he gets a little sunshine, he wakes right up, and it all comes back.
So, in terms of that, I also read something that was along those lines that said that the reason that he died, spoiler alert, which is we're in the spoilers, the reason that he died was because you had to show that this is a situation where it's going to take more than that to bring it back.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what they're leading into, and like this is a whole theory thing.
Yeah, this actually this perfect little transition into the final aspect of the podcast where we want to talk about where we see this going. So if you're coming back to here after spoilers and you haven't seen the movie, you may still want to ignore this. I actually watched something with Zack Snyder after seeing the movie, and he was talking about the death of Superman and why he killed him. And he actually said from the beginning, he's always wanted Batman to put the Justice League together, which is interesting because in the comics he wants nothing to do with the Justice League, and he's like, call me when you need help, not if, but like when you need help. So I think it's interesting that that Zack is actually trying to change that and make Batman the one who puts it together. And he's like, he said I needed to find a way to get Superman out of the way. And he's like, and this was I thought was the best way to do it, which I think was the best way to do it because Doomsday is the one who actually does successfully kill Superman.
True.
And so I kind of liked that. The one thing I was kind of talking to my friend about afterwards is I'm like, if he couldn't even get the little kryptonite staff out of the water without fainting, like how is he able to fly from one side to the other?
That was what I was going to say. I was going to say that the effects the kryptonite has on him throughout the movie is inconsistent.
Yes.
And so, go ahead.
Well, I was going to just say that I think my theory on that after watching the movie was that it's kind of like almost a tolerance thing. Like at first, he's never been exposed to that level of kryptonite, so it's like just knocks him out. And then after many different kinds of exposure, he gets not used to it, but knows the effect, like he knows when it's coming.
See,
almost.
I felt like the movie needed him to do that, and so he did it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think at the last moment, it's just like anything. If you're using up all your last energy, all your last, when you're going to do something that big, you're using all your adrenaline, all your muscle strength, everything to get it done, knowing full well that's going to be your last moment.
And they did kind of give him that strained look on his face as he was
flying, but he was like a foot off the ground.
Yeah. That's a lot of, I don't know.
I mean, I get it,
leap.
because it is a big leap, and like I said, I mean, that was one of the things I was just kind of like, oh, that was kind of interesting and convenient, but at the same time, like, that wasn't so big that I was like, oh, no, I hate
Oh
the
no,
movie.
that wasn't my breaking point. But at the same time, while we're there, I did not like the bone sword.
Yeah, I expected the more, like, bony hand.
I wanted to see the knuckles and
Yeah.
like, if anything, my argument for the way this movie ended and how I feel they could have done it a little bit better, made it more impactful, is if they had not rushed into Doomsday. I wish they had put Lex in a power suit that was kryptonite based at the end of the movie and made him the villain. And then eventually you could have had Doomsday come back and literally beat Superman to death.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Because I feel like that's his thing in the comics, right? He's the force that matches Superman physically, and he's the only one who can come in and literally do that.
Yeah.
So,
although Batman did a pretty darn good job of it.
That's true, but at the same time, that's something else entirely, because that was my whole problem with the way Superman was portrayed in the whole thing. I felt like, everybody was just like, if you have a problem with Superman, kryptonite, and he's done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I feel like they overdid it a little bit at times. And that was where the inconsistencies came in, because it was like, anytime he's around this thing, he's just out, or he's okay. Sometimes, like, it depends on how close he is. I feel like the gas would have killed him.
It looked like it was going to. Like, had he given gas bomb one more time, that probably would have done it.
But here's the thing about the sunlight and regeneration. I heard or read somewhere that because they're planning on introducing Darkseid, that the reason they did that and they had the sun bring him back was because when he's dead, at least in the grave, it's going to take more to bring him back to life.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that what they're going to do, or some of the speculation about what they're going to do, is maybe have Darkseid bring him back, and it's going to go into the storylines where he's brainwashed into trying to take over the world.
Which could then prove to be very similar to the nightmare we got.
Exactly. And so that's why I was excited about that, because then you have Superman as like the
kind
herald
of
of Darkseid. Yeah, and so I think that would be kind of really cool to see that happen. But the other stuff that I saw directly from Zack Snyder was like, well, you'll get a return, like he'll come back. It won't be right away, it won't be exactly in the way that you think it will be, but just wait. Just wait, we have it planned out.
Yeah, which is cool. I'm glad they have a plan.
Yeah, it sounds like, though, from what you said, sounds like they're going to kill off Lois at some point.
If they're going with that.
Yeah, they keep kind of preluding to that.
So,
or Batman's just going to sleep with her. And Superman's not going to like
that random girl that just happened to be in his bed when he got up that one day.
That was Lois.
That's what we didn't tell you. So where do you see this going? Like, so we know that their next movie is other than Suicide Squad, which I expect to be like on a whole different level of fun. Like, if you want your fun from DC, that's movie.
Yeah.
Besides that, and besides the cameo Batman has in that, the Justice League, that's the next big movie we're getting from them. What do you expect? What do you see happening?
I told you both before that I came out of this movie not knowing where they intended to take this. And that was just because watching like the stuff that they had established, The only thing that I can tell you is that I see Batman putting together the Justice League and then being maybe reluctant to do it, but maybe not. I don't know.
See, I don't think he's very reluctant to do it, especially since he told Wonder Woman.
Oh, not him.
We
I mean
need
the
to do
members
this.
in joining.
I don't know. I think they might be for it. I think the coolest of all three of those cameos, Flash, Cyborg, and Aquaman, I loved the glowing eyes that Aquaman had in the dark. That was so cool. But my favorite cameo was Cyborg. I thought that was awesome.
I like the way they did it.
They explained his origin without dragging it on.
I like the way they did it.
That was cool about the whole thing.
Yeah.
I thought it was a real clever way to show everybody.
Yeah.
Without, because we talked about it. Like, how are they going to fit all of these characters?
Right.
Like, there goes Flash. Well,
Yeah.
Look, that's, but it
Just
was
a
all.
bunch of files on metahumans.
Right. It was a real quick introduction here, real fast. And not only, it was a clever way to do it because it was also fit in with the current times. It's
Yeah.
like, that's how we do research now.
Exactly.
And you look through certain things. You look at it real quick, watch one video, and all right, I know that guy.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm kind of seeing it more. Wonder Woman being the reluctant one because of what she said about, she's been on this earth for over a century and like kind of lost faith in humanity and stuff like that. And so she's kind of distanced herself, which her Wonder Woman movie hopefully will explain that a little bit. But I expect that one to have a lot of time jumps in it too. So you may want to wear your time jump hat for that, JJ.
It's going back in time, I get that. It's not being anywhere in time that, if you're going to make a time jump, fucking explain the time jump. Don't just shoot me all over the fucking place. But, all right.
To wrap this up here pretty quick. I see her being the reluctant one, but also kind of being the Black Widow style, to compare it to Marvel a little bit, in you being able to utilize her reluctance to help a reluctant Aquaman as well, because I can see Aquaman being reluctant because in the comics he's always trying to.
All right, so we're back? Yeah, I guess we're back. I don't know where it stopped. That's interesting.
Okay.
But it was an hour, so I think we got all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe
So
just
anyway,
stop
I could see him being kind of reluctant and Wonder Woman kind of coming in to try to help out.
I can see that too. I didn't like how it looked like he was holding his breath.
Well, I mean, Jason Momoa is still just a man.
No, he's supposed to be Aquaman. He needs to learn how to breathe underwater really fucking quickly.
They may show some stuff off like that.
I think that, I'm excited to see what they do with these other characters.
Flash is definitely going to be your comic book relief, very much so kind of
the jokester.
I'm the hero's hero.
Yeah. Speaking of which, when he came through in that dream,
that was
edit
interesting.
this backward. Very interesting. Not how I thought it was going to be, but cool.
Yes.
What was he wearing?
I don't know.
It was like some kind of weird time suit.
It was. There's a lot of like conspiracies going around that he was coming through a boom tube.
That would have been cool.
Or like somehow through the Speed Force, something like that. But there's a lot of allusion to the fact that that's happened, that flashback happens during probably the second Justice League, around that same time frame where it's the all-out fight against Darkseid, and he's coming back to warn. This could fit into your theory about Superman being brainwashed. He's coming back to warn Batman that he was right. Lois Lane is the way to fix it.
I think that would be cool. My only confusion about it was the suit. Because if he's coming through the Speed Force, then he shouldn't need that.
If he's the reason that I think that they use the suit is if you are doing an all-out brawl with Darkseid,
battle suit
you probably want some kind of battle suit. And so that's something that maybe Batman and Alfred kind of worked up, which I like that about Alfred, where it always looked like he was tinkering with the toy.
That was cool.
I was like, that's very
great. I liked Alfred.
He's taking up the Tony Stark kind of guy. Yeah. I think that's DC's issues, which there are many. One of which is that they focus so much on Batman the past 20 years that we don't know anything about anybody else. So everybody else in the Justice League, the only people who know about them are the people who've read the comics
Mm-hmm.
and read the books. And those of us who have not, who have just been on the sidelines of that stuff, are going to be learning a lot. And I think that's going to be really difficult to do in Justice League, to show us who these people are,
Mm-hmm.
because of the major fans are going to be, yeah, that's cool. It's exactly how I pictured him, and everybody else is going, why does he look so weird?
Yeah.
So like, what is that? What is? We need a lot more explanation.
I would
And
agree.
if this movie is any indication, we're not going to get much.
No.
They're gonna throw you into it.
Yeah.
And just be like, fend for yourself and tie this shit together.
Yeah.
Which, not a bad thing, but I feel like so early on.
You
it's
want to know something
detrimental.
interesting, though, is the movie was co-written with a guy who knew nothing about comic books until after he wrote the movie, and now he's like a comic book master.
Does that surprise anybody?
It's really I thought it was kind of interesting how that worked. So these are our opinions.
Yeah, I am on here. Oh yeah, what are your opinions on stuff?
Yeah, these are our opinions. I mean, like, we want to know what you guys think.
You wrote in here, no disagreeing to just disagree. So if
Exactly.
you're going to disagree or agree, give a reason. Or if you're not going to say anything, which has been popular so far, then, just don't. We'll put our own pieces together for why you are saying or not saying what you're saying.
Exactly.
Push people to tweet the blog or the cast at their Twitter handles. I'm not going to push anyone.
You should.
But
I understand.
I understand. That is like one of my favorite parts of the movie. Okay, so yeah, tweet Jared at Riddle_Bat. Tweet me at Jimmy Janda because it's my name. And Phil doesn't have Twitter because he's old. So
Old fashioned.
and he doesn't care about your thoughts. So,
And that's also true.
or you can tweet the blog too, SS Scrutiny Blog, or you can email it at silverscreenscrutinyblog@gmail.com. Clearly, I have not used that enough.
No, you've not.
Because it's still questionable. So yeah, all right. Until next time, podcast Nerd Life is what we're going with.
That's
What's the
going.
slogan?
Eat, sleep, and breathe all things nerd life.
There it is. Eat, sleep, and breathe. All things nerd life. Except Aquaman, who can't breathe underwater. All right.